Raul Osiel Marroquín was born in Tampico, Mexico. Tampico is a port city located by the Gulf of Mexico and is known for having one of the oldest lighthouses built in 1825. His parents raised him in a strict environment where he endured constant mistreatment. At the age of almost 15, in 1999, he joined his city's infantry battalion as a soldier and began studying to become a military doctor. Unfortunately, financial constraints forced him to discontinue his studies after only a year. Despite attaining the rank of staff sergeant, he was discharged from the Army in May 2004 after 4 years of service. Following his departure, he returned to Tampico. Upon his return, Marroquín found himself involved in an armed robbery that resulted in a prison sentence of 1 year and 2 months. After his release in October 2005, he made the decision to relocate to Mexico City, specifically to Colonia, Asturias. It was here that he began contemplating ways to make easy money, leading him to devise a unique form of kidnapping for ransom. Instead of targeting random individuals on the streets, he planned to frequent bars, using his charismatic and manipulative personality to befriend potential victims. Marroquín intended to make romantic and erotic propositions to these individuals, taking advantage of their vulnerability. Recognizing that he couldn't carry out these acts alone, Marroquín shared his plan with a man named Juan Enrique Madrid, whose origin and connection to him remain unknown. Together, they embarked on their criminal endeavors. On October 21, 2005, they entered a well-known gay bar in Zona Rosa called Carabetito Neon. Taking seats at opposite ends of the bar, they carefully observed the patrons and those who approached them. One of the men who approached Marroquín at the bar was Juan Alba. Marroquín asked him about his job and where he lived, but he lied in response to every question. Marroquín gradually investigated Alfaro's financial situation, aiming to determine if his family would be capable of paying a ransom. Convinced that Alfaro was the person he had been looking for, Marroquín discussed the plan with Enrique. Their plan involved Marroquín leaving with the victim, and they would meet at the Amazonas Hotel, specifically in room 619. After beating and restraining Juan with blankets and tape, they threatened to throw him off the 6th floor. Marroquín also used a lace to strangle him until he fainted, waiting for him to regain consciousness before making him faint again. They tortured him for 2 days, and then requested information about his relatives to demand a ransom of 3,000 Mexican pesos. Despite coming from a low-income family, they paid the ransom as quickly as possible. However, they did not release Alfaro. Instead, they held him captive for nearly a week, subjecting him to continuous physical and psychological torture. After a week, they left him alone in the room, and Alfaro cried out for help during the long hours of isolation. Eventually, the hotel staff rescued him and freed him from his restraints. Unsatisfied with the amount of money they had obtained, Marroquín decided to repeat the same plan with his accomplice. This time, however, they opted not to take the victim to a hotel, but instead brought him directly to Marroquín's apartment. On October 27, 2005, while Enrique waited in the apartment, Marroquín returned to the same bar in Zona Rosa. There, he met his second victim, Jonathan Ayala. Through seduction, he persuaded Ayala to accompany him to his apartment. Upon arrival, Ayala was immediately subjected to torture by both Marroquín and Enrique, who bound him with tape and inflicted simultaneous beatings. They then contacted Ayala's family and demanded a ransom of 50,000 pesos, instructing them to transfer the funds to Jonathan's bank account. Due to the limitations of their card, the family made daily payments over time. However, on November 12th, after being deprived of his freedom for 16 days, Jonathan was tragically killed. First, Marroquín strangled Jonathan Ayala with a string, and then with his hands. Finally, he hanged him, using a rope and a hook installed in his apartment, raising him until he died. Marroquín and Enrique then placed the body in a fetal position and packed it into a suitcase they had purchased. The following morning, they left the suitcase near the Chapacano metro system, returning with an empty suitcase. Jonathan's body was discovered that morning, but there were no clues to lead investigators to the killers. Only 18 days after committing their first murder, Marroquín and Enrique repeated the same plan. Marroquín met another man named Ricardo Hernandez in the bar's bathroom. Ricardo was then taken by taxi to Marroquín's apartment, where he was held captive for 9 days. During that time, the Specialized Investigation of Organized Crime and the Federal Investigation Agency began investigating Ricardo's disappearance. While being held captive, Ricardo's feet and hands were bound, and the kidnappers demanded a ransom of 120,000 pesos from his family. The family started making daily payments of 4,000 pesos as requested by Marroquín. The kidnappers contacted the family over 20 times during those 9 days, even suggesting that they mortgage their house if they couldn't gather the full amount. Investigators worked alongside the Lopez family, trying to gather information that could lead to the perpetrators. Ironically, Marroquín was careless in his actions. He opened 3 bank accounts in Ricardo's name to receive the ransom money, but this went unnoticed. On December 9, 2005, when the family informed Marroquín that they could only gather 28,000 pesos, he assured them that he would release Ricardo. However, Ricardo's fate would be the same as the previous victim. He was hanged with a rope. Marroquín and Enrique then cut his forehead and marked a pentagram similar to those seen in satanic rituals, aiming to confuse investigators and make them think it was the work of a cult or a sect. After wrapping the body in garbage bags, they placed it in a suitcase and returned to the Chabacano metro station by taxi. However, this time, they took 2 taxis and forgot one of the suitcases with the body. The following morning, a woman discovered the suitcase and reported it to the police. Upon opening it, Ricardo's body was found, yet once again, there were no clues to identify the murderers. On December 13, 2005, Marroquín and his accomplice kidnapped Jose Valdez. His mother pleaded with them not to harm him and explained that she had no money. For reasons that remain unclear to this day, Marroquín released Jose, warning his mother that if she contacted the police, he would kill him. But 3 days later, on December 16th, Marroquín went from releasing a hostage without demanding ransom or causing harm to kidnapping not 1, but 2 individuals almost on the same day. First, he met Armando Perez at the same bar. They exchanged phone numbers and planned a date for the following day. Additionally, Marroquín met Victor Balderas and successfully seduced him. That night, they went to the apartment where Enrique was waiting. Once they arrived, like their previous victims, they bound Ivan's hands and feet. They then contacted his family and demanded a ransom of 15,000 pesos. The next morning, while Ivan remained tied up in the apartment, Marroquín had lunch with Armando. He invited Armando to his house for a drink, to which Armando agreed. Once they were at Marroquín's place, with Ivan still gagged in the next room, Armando was also tied up. The following day, Marroquín contacted their relatives and demanded 15,000 pesos for each of them. Although they received the money on December 22nd, the fate of the hostages would be the same as the previous victims. They were hanged from the hook installed in the room. Marroquín and Enrique then covered their bodies with garbage bags and placed them in 2 separate suitcases. However, the suitcases were too heavy this time, so they decided not to take a taxi. Instead, they left them just 1 block away from Marroquín's place. The suitcases were discovered that same night. The media quickly gave this unknown killer nicknames, the Sadist and the Rainbow Killer. However, Marroquín and his accomplice were careless, as mentioned before. Their carelessness would ultimately lead to their downfall. The suitcases, which were dragged, left tracks from the place they came from. The police immediately requested a search warrant to enter the building. After searching several apartments, they entered Marroquín's place, but he had already left. On that same day, December 22nd, he had bought a ticket to Tamaulipas. However, the police found Enrique's ID, papers with Marroquín's name, the pulley system, the ropes used to hang the victims, false credit cards used to receive money, a bloody razor blade used to scarify the victims' foreheads, and the hostages' IDs. These items may have been kept as souvenirs or trophies. Consequently, on December 28th, the police set up a guard post outside Marroquín's building and patiently awaited his return. On January 23, 2006, Marroquín, better known as the Sadist, was arrested in Mexico as he was about to enter his apartment. He did not resist arrest and even confessed that he had planned to kidnap 3 more men, but was waiting for his accomplice who was traveling. The news of the Sadist's arrest spread rapidly throughout Mexican media. Later, Marroquín made more disturbing statements, revealing his evident homophobia. He claimed to have done society a favor stating, "In fact, now that I'm arrested, I have the information that one of my victims had HIV. So in a way, I prevented the spread of that virus." These statements reflected his twisted mindset and lack of remorse. Subsequently, Marroquín was sentenced to 60 years in prison without the possibility of parole. However, as more evidence of his crimes emerged, on February 2010, he received an extended sentence of 288 years in prison. The severity of his crimes and the impact they had on his victims led to the significant increase in his sentence. Regarding Enrique, Marroquín's accomplice, little information is available about him. It is unclear what role he played in the crimes or what his involvement entailed. Enrique is rumored to have had a romantic relationship with Marroquín, but no evidence has been found to confirm this. Despite reports of his arrest in 2013, Enrique is still on the run and remains on the most wanted list in Mexico. Authorities continue their efforts to apprehend him and hold him accountable for his alleged involvement in the crimes. If you would like to share your thoughts on this video, please leave a comment. Till next time.